Good evening. Welcome to the April 5th, 2016 meeting of the Millis School Committee. I'll start by announcing that this meeting is being recorded and can be viewed on Mondays at 7 p.m. on channel 37 for Verizon or Comcast channel 8. Jody, anybody signed in for open session? All right. Then I'll start with a roll call. Denise?
Here.
Sean?
Here.
Nancy?
Here.
Steve?
Present.
Janet absent. Teacher representative?
Here.
And student representative?
Here.
All right, and then we'll go to action items. We'll take them a little out of order. The first one we'll take is consideration to approve of construction of dugouts on the varsity softball field by the Millis Girls Softball League. And Dave Schofield from the Millis Girls Softball League is here to give us an update on what the project would look like. And
Good evening, Dave. Could I ask a question just preliminarily?
Yep.
Is that town land or is that school property?
School land.
Okay. Over here?
The one over there.
Next to the mower?
School.
Really?
Yeah, the school.
I always was under the impression it was town land.
You're not alone. There's been
Just like why the field behind Clyde Brown is actually town land as opposed to
Right,
school.
I got you. Sorry, didn't mean to
No.
steal your thunder, Dave.
My pleasure, anytime, Mr. John. Thank you for having me and allowing me to present to you. I'm Dave Schofield, Vice President of Millis Softball. This has been a project that has been in the works for a number of years, but now we're able to really work on it as we have got a pretty sizable board doing many different things, and it's allowed me some extra resources and time to work on this. So really, for years I've been coaching up at this field, and as many of you know from being there, it can be very congested, and it's a safety hazard. I'm just surprised no child has been clocked in the head with a baseball, with a softball, or a bat. And as a coach, it's always something that's always on my mind, keeping people away. And the way it's set up right now, it's just not conducive to a proper softball team. So what we propose is renovating the area, separating the public from the players so that they can't have free roam behind the dugouts and where they're warming up, where the on-deck circle is. That's where most of the problem is. And this project kind of deals with that. It takes the old dugout, removes it completely, and updates it with a more modern one that you'd see at, say, Medway or Medfield. It meets MIA standards, and it'll be a nice addition to really aesthetically improve the field, but it serves a real good safety purpose, and it'll last a lot longer than what's currently out there right now. So I appreciate your time. I'm going to go through this real quick and then answer some questions, and you'll see some of the pictures that will help you visualize what we're talking about. So again, this has been something in the works for a while. We just want a safer environment and something to improve to help both programs, the Girls Softball League and the varsity and JV team. And we think this will promote, much better pride, and it will be much safer for everyone else. So the scope of it is to remove the existing fences, the benches, put in a concrete slab, mallet columns with a nice maroon corrugated metal roof, fencing behind it, and fencing in front to avoid having foul balls hit the participants. The other thing we're going to be doing is behind the dugouts, we're going to be putting in a fence, so that right now the way it is, when the pitcher's warming up, anyone sitting in the stands is taking their life in their own hands. So you've seen many balls go over there. Now this takes it out of there, because we have an area where it's going to be designated just for the warm-up of the pitcher and the catcher. We're going to also install 2 electrical outlets per the varsity coach. He recommended that. I ran this by Chuck Grant as well. He gave the endorsement. He likes it. He gave a good suggestion about not having a windscreen. We had initially thought about doing that, but he felt that for people sitting back behind home plate and off to the side, it would impair their view of what's going on in the game. I'm going to try to sell Chuck on it, because I do like the idea, because anything that we can do to cut down on the wind, anyone knows it gets to be a dust bowl. First things first, Any questions so far? So I worked with several members of the committee, the softball team, and Ken Whalen, who's a local contractor, who we really put in a lot of time to get pricing on all the materials. We went to several different suppliers. Some are donating items. We're in discussions right now with Tresca Brothers to get free concrete for the slab. It's good. They're very generous. They do a lot for the community. We've also worked really hard at getting the right price for the fencing. We learned something through this process, that if we are to hire the contractor to put in the fence, we have to pay prevailing wage with the public project. So we really feel that having a new dugout here is going to improve morale for the team, the town. It's going to be a safer environment. It's going to be there for a long time too. And with the run we've had with softball, there's no end with where it's going to go, and I think they will certainly benefit from it. The other thing that's going to really help us is we'll be in a position to offer ASA tournaments. These tournaments can take in anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 in revenue. That's after expenses. It's significant. There's a lot of communities that do that. And little by slow, once we get some of the other fields fixed up, there's no reason we can't really host some decent tournaments and make some money and help offset any sort of additional cost to maintain these. So here's essentially a breakdown of everything that we need to make this thing happen. And Ken Whalen really we've worked with him. He's gone to the building inspector, who's given us the blessing on it. I'll tell you about the process. We still have to meet with the selectmen to seek both approval and money to cash to make this thing happen. So essentially, it comprises of the benches, the concrete, the metal, the roofing, and the fencing. Labor is going to be done by volunteers, with the exception of the fencing. That's kind of a specialized thing. The contractor will have to do that. So we're looking at a cost of $14,104. And most of the labor, with the exception, like I said, of the fencing, is donated. And I'll backtrack about the approval process. I just want to show you kind of what we're looking at. That's a kind of a facsimile of what it's going to look like. It's going to have the corrugated roof. It's going to have the fencing coming up to block the players, and there's going to be fencing behind it too. We're going to build cubbies above each of the areas where the benches are, so the players can put their helmets and hang. That's what a lot of towns are doing now. That's kind of how it's going to look. Both visiting and away is going to have new ones. So right there that's the chief concern when we started this. That's where the warm-up circle is. And people are always coming and going, and we're going to be blocking off the public. That's what it looks like now. With all the people walking through that area, it really does a job on it, erosion. We initially we had the option to put field turf there. We had found a vendor that was going to sell it $1 a square foot. But we decided to keep the costs down, and we saw a lot of the concerns with the crumb rubber that took place a few years ago. We didn't want to touch it, and right now we're going to do this and possibly look at getting some sod or improving this. Another view, that's a view of the first base side. That's a view from behind. That's where right now people come just pour in there. So this, I don't know if you can see it, but I used this painting device on Adobe, and that's going to be blocked off. That's going to be a fence, and we're going to have a gate so that emergency vehicles can still come in and access it, but we won't be something that people can just continuously pour through. That's kind of what we're looking at. But this is taken from one of the schools over at Medfield. It's going to look very similar to that. Same dimensions. There's another view, and I know that light's kind of in the way, so. This is kind of the schematic that we initially brought to the town, that Ken Whalen met with the building inspector, and he said that's fine. Once we get approved by the selectmen to go forward with this, and once the financing has been arranged, then we're going to have we have to get it stamped by an engineer or a supervisor that has a license to, before we can start work on this. That's essentially the plan in a nutshell. Completion date is moving. It's really, there's a lot of moving parts still right now. We'd been hopeful that we could maybe get this done by the start of the season, but that's not likely going to happen because there's very special financing. I'm meeting with the selectmen on Monday with Ken Whalen to answer any of their questions and to request money to approve this project. And so we'll see what they say about that. And hopefully tap into the money that, through the grant that was given to the town for the fields, the $50,000. From what I understand, we're still trying to arrange to secure that, but that's what we're hoping we'll access. Any questions?
One question, not so much
Yeah.
for you, Dave, but more in terms of, because I know we talked about this very briefly, in terms of, I know there's discussions about transferring ownership to the field and where the field plays into a potential school. My understanding that these wouldn't be impacted in any way.
Not at all.
And even we talked about the vast majority of these materials could be moved if we needed to anyway, but it doesn't. It's not going to have to. So that concern about how the new build or potential new building or renovation or whatever will play into the field, there'd be no impact. So putting these in now.
That's correct.
Makes sense.
That's correct.
We figured that too. Thank you for bringing that up. Worst case scenario, we'd end up losing the slab. It's going to be all metal. There's not going to be any pressure treated wood, so that essentially we can remove the pieces, the lallet columns. Certainly the columns going into the cement and the footings would go. We could reuse those, but a high percentage of this we could reuse if we had to.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
I have a motion to approve the construction of dugouts on the varsity softball field by Millis Girls Softball League as presented by Mr. Schofield.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, David.
Thanks, Dave.
Next we'll move up, consideration to approve minutes.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of the emergency meeting on Monday, emergency meeting to discuss air quality at Clyde Brown School. That was held on Monday, February 22nd, 2016.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I make a motion to approve the emergency meeting minutes to discuss air quality at Clyde Brown School. That was held on Wednesday, February 24th, 2016.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair, I vote to approve, I make a motion to approve the open forum to address air quality meeting minutes that was held on Sunday, February 28th, 2016.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from the school committee working session held on Tuesday, March 15th, 2016.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to approve the school committee meeting minutes of 3/22/2016.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next, we have consideration to approve the draft of 2016-2017 school calendar.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
we have, the association and the administration has put together a draft calendar for the upcoming school year. We begin at the end of August, with teachers coming the 29th and 30th of August, which is similar to what we did this year. Then students have a day in August and a day September 1st, and then Friday is off to give families the long Labor Day weekend. This is fairly standard of what we've been doing the past few years. The only, well, that takes us through June 14th unless we have 5 weather-related days, which would bring us to June 21st. We are working as an administration and with teachers, perhaps next year preparing what we might be able to get approval for with the Department of Education for virtual days, but that's a work in progress, weather related. The only difference that this calendar does not yet have are the scheduled conferences for parent-teacher conferences. Normally that is a pre-K to 5, 2 days, usually right before Thanksgiving, but that is being talked about and collaborative during negotiations, so we have put a note that those are just to be determined.
So the calendar, like this year, has technically 181 days. And we would update it if November 21st and 22nd became half days.
Correct. Once parent conferences are scheduled, then we'll update and approve the calendar again. But I know families are looking to plan their summer, so and it's also important for the extended day program, summer program, etc. So we'd like to recommend approving the calendar, and then we will add the conference days later.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the 2016-2017 Millis Public School calendar as presented.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the calendar as draft to be updated for parent-teacher conferences. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. All our action items, we'll move to student representatives. All right.
So first up is that prom tickets are going on sale this week. They're $60 this year, and the prom is taking place at Raphael's in Walpole. Also, this Wednesday, April 6th, is the 8th to 9th grade transition night, so we have some high schoolers going there to speak and kind of help out with that night. And then Beautification Day is Saturday, April 9th. That starts at 8 a.m. and some of the high school teachers, they're site leaders this year. Solo ensemble for the band and chorus. That concert's on Wednesday, April 13th, and it's at 7 p.m. here in the high school. And then April vacation it starts on the 18th, and for the group of kids in the high school that are traveling to Europe, they leave Thursday, April 14th.
Thank you.
Teacher representatives?
For Millis Beautification Day, they are still looking for some student volunteers, if anyone is available, to work around Clyde Brown as well as here at the high school. And the play, Once Upon a Mattress, is being performed this weekend here in the high school auditorium on Friday and Saturday evenings. There is a grade 5 wax museum for the middle school students, April 15th. And tomorrow at the high school, there's also Lights, Camera, Action. The media conference is here. The 8th and 9th grade Rising Parent Information Night is tomorrow night at 6:30. And Literary Arts Night will be on May 4th. Also here in the library, there will be music and art performances by middle and high school students, as well as some guests that will be performing and or presenting artwork. So that is sponsored by the Millis Cultural Council.
Next, we will move to time and learning, our class of 2015 testing and placement report. That
This is my favorite presentation of the year.
Waiting for that.
I love this presentation. I have high expectations and high hopes. I've never been disappointed.
There's always a lot of pressure coming into this because I know that, we both know that. Doesn't make it easy,
Always good.
Always for information. Completely.
Second thought presentation, huh? Here's a little bit slow. Figured you waited this long. I figured you've been excited for this long. This is the dramatic pause. Just to start off with, I kind of try to do this every year when we come in, is just to give you a general idea of kind of where things are at right now, both in the counseling office and with the students at the high school. I don't have to go through the list and list them all off to you guys, but I wanted to give you just a general idea of some of the acceptances students have heard back this year. Still waiting on some, if you can believe that, even though we're in the first week of April. I know a lot of kids are still waiting on UMass. They're a little bit late getting their letters out. But that's just a general idea of some of the schools that kids have gotten accepted to so far. And you can see some of those being a little bit further away, and there'll be some kids that are yeah, as I know, and there's some kids that are going to go there too, Yeah, it's unbelievable. One kid's looking into the University of Virginia right now and might go, we have kids going to, Auburn, Alabama. Yeah, a few different, like one kid is contemplating California right now.
Beginning of the year, seniors are thinking they want to go far away, and it's interesting to see how it all shakes out by the end of the year when we think about actually leaving this.
Yeah.
We'll see.
But I think we'll find this year that we'll have some kids that are heading off to some different places. You'll see that in the report from last year's class too, that they did diversify and head out a little bit more than the class the year before. One thing I think that we saw again this year, I think, is that with the upper echelon, the upper tier of schools, I think generally across the board with those schools, we saw again this year that admissions were very difficult. As they're coming out with their numbers, everybody's saying it was, tied for our lowest acceptance rate ever, or it was our lowest acceptance rate ever. I think they just, the other day, this morning, I was reading something and it said, this is outrageous, that Stanford had a 4.9% acceptance rate this year, which is, that's absurd, so it's, good for them, but it's challenging, and for most of the, anybody else that's in that, if you didn't get in, you're among the 95%. So you're in a pretty good majority of solid kids that are going to do really well. So just to give you some perspective on that. To give you an idea of what we're doing, so we kind of like to pump our tires a little bit when we come in and just tell you some of the things that we're doing. We've again this year done the Signs of Suicide program. We just finished up with another group of 9th graders in health classes. We'll be doing a refresher with the 12th graders before they head off for school. We finished up sophomore and junior seminars. We're moving on. This is the 2nd or 3rd year I think we've expanded our freshman. We expanded every seminar curriculum in the classrooms, but we've expanded our freshman curriculum that we meet with the kids 3 times over the course of the school year and talk about a variety of different things. And so we'll meet with them one more time this year. One thing that we were excited about, we were one of the 90 schools in the state that was chosen for the Game Change program, which is an anti-violence prevention program that was in conjunction with the Patriots and the Attorney General's office. And we've actually applied for a 2nd phase of the program that we're waiting to hear back on, which might provide us with some in-school training. We're hoping maybe we'll use our peer leaders as part of a training group to help train other kids in the building, maybe being able to work with the middle school a little bit. But it's anti-violence. It's like using a bystander approach of preventing violence against women. I think it came from the National Football League, and but I think the impetus for this is really good, and we're hoping that we can, with the resources from the Commonwealth, we'll be able to hopefully put a decent program in to go along with signs of suicide and some of the other things that we're doing. We had a college mini fair that Riley helped to really put together for us, which was awesome. We must have had, what, 36 to 40 schools? Yeah, about 40 schools that came in on a Wednesday morning here, which was great, and all the juniors got to go. We'll get to take advantage of that. We're scheduling high school students now, so it's a busy time. We're meeting with the middle school students on Thursday to start the scheduling process with them. And then tomorrow night, Steve knows we're having an 8th to 9th grade step-up night. We're going to have, from 6 to 6:30, we're going to have clubs and organizations from the school be in the cafeteria. It's kind of an open house for 8th grade students to come in and kind of sample some of the things that we do here at the high school. And then we'll have a presentation at 6:30 about the transition up to the high school. AP exams will be starting on May 2nd. We'll be talking about AP stuff tonight. And I think the last thing just to talk about was just local scholarship opportunities. Those are open now for current seniors and kids that are in Millis. And they just have to go on the Millis website, and all the information is up there to find out about scholarships, local scholarship. So that's kind of where we're at right now, just to give you an idea of the things that we've been doing in the office. So we've been pretty busy. So I'll get into the nuts and bolts. I know everybody has the report there, so I won't bore you with every statistic and number as we go through the night, but just kind of give you some highlights of some of the things that came out of the report. Last year we had 86% of our kids go off to four-year colleges. That was a jump from the last couple of years as far as four-year schools go. We were around 74 to 76%, I think, for 2 years previous. So it was a bit of a jump last year. It was also the 12th straight year we've had more than 75% of our kids go off to four-year college. 91% going off to some sort of formal education, so that's 2-year school, tech school, trade school, post-grad year, or four-year college. Right about on par with the previous year's class. And then we've had, over the last 17 years, almost 90% moving off to continuing education. That's a pretty good chunk of time, I think, speaks highly to what the parents and students and value in the district, and most of them are moving off into some sort of education when they get out of high school. We always try to do this, and it's not perfect, but using Barron's rankings of competitiveness for college admissions. Just one book that's out there that kind of ranks all this stuff, and I know everybody has different opinions about rankings, but we just try to put this in perspective for everybody every year when we come in. 46%, so about half of our acceptance fell into one of the top 3 categories that they list in the book. Most competitive, highly, very competitive. That was up from 42% for the class of 2014, so about on par. So that stayed about the same. Our acceptances in the most competitive category dropped a few percentage points for this previous year's class. And I think Riley and I were talking about this beforehand, and I think every year is a little bit different what you see for admissions, and I also think that the most competitive category has gotten a lot more competitive in the last few years. So you've seen percentages of acceptance rates drop too. So I'm not totally surprised that's happened. We've had some kids this year that were phenomenal students that you could not have done anymore. And each of us have had phone conversations with a couple different institutions saying like, okay, well, I don't understand why this kid didn't win. It doesn't make a lot of sense to us. And after having that conversation, really we've heard from some reps just said there really isn't anything else that kid could have done. Like they had everything you could ask for, the activities you would want. They did a great application. SATs were great. It just was a matter of numbers, and unfortunately we couldn't let them in. So that being said, we've had those conversations, but we've also had kids coming in with some great acceptances too. And the kids, as long as they're doing good balanced lists, are having good opportunities and options. And I think you'll see, we did some survey data with the senior class last year, and you'll see that later on in the presentation, some of the satisfaction kids had within last year's class with some of their acceptances. So they are getting into some great places and doing really well. And the largest group of acceptances was in the competitive category, which was about on par, 3% lower than the previous class, which is about, statistically about the same. Geographically, like we talked about a little bit before, the year before, I think it was 95% of our kids stayed in New England. Last year was 78, so we had kids kind of going off in some different directions last year, which is exciting. And from what we've heard, and I'm looking at the list on the screen right now, I think a lot of the kids that are out there are really enjoying themselves. You know, the one nice thing about being in the small school is that when everybody comes back for break and everything, it's kind of nice. Like, we are a family here. Like, the kids will come back in when we get to break times. So we've seen a lot of these kids, and I know they're doing great. I know the kid in Arizona couldn't say enough great things about where she is in South Carolina, Illinois, from Montana. Somebody's out in Montana. He actually called in looking for a transcript for something too. Like, he loves Montana. So kids are heading off to some different places. I think we'll see that again this year as well too. But 16 different states, which is pretty cool. And I know one of them's in Washington, D.C. This is Taylor's brother, and I think he's doing all right now. Yeah. He's complaining about his allergies with the cherry blossom trees, right? But other than that, he's doing all right. So that's just an idea geographically. So getting into just the testing portion of it, the SAT, and we had 93% of our kids took the test last year, so that's about on par with where we usually are. We were up a little bit we were up about 30 points from the previous year on that 1600 scale, which is critical reading and math. Our mean score was up on the 2400 scale, which is the critical reading, math, and the writing. So that was up the same thing. It's about a little over 30 points on that as well. And then we were above mass and national averages. So I think I told you last year, I thought we'd see a little jump in our scores going into this last year's class, and we did. That's all going to kind of get thrown out the window as we move into next year. And you guys, you think this report was interesting, wait till next year, because we have to figure out how we're going to compare everything, because it's a brand new SAT that they just gave for the first time in March. The kids that took that test are going to be waiting until May before they get their results, because they have to do all kinds of concordance tables between the old and the new tests to see how things even up, how they compare not only the SATs from the past, but also how they compare to the ACTs. So we're going to kind of be waiting to see what that is. There's 2 new sections on that. It's evidence-based reading and writing, and there's math, and then there's an optional essay. So there's a change in how they're looking at vocabulary. They're trying to get away from some of those more archaic words and use things that are a little bit more modern language that kids would see in different circumstances. The math has a lot more focus on algebra than it has, I think, in the past. And then there's an optional writing section now, so the kids don't have to do it. What we're finding is that the majority of New England schools aren't requiring the essay. So it's not a required piece, but yet there are schools that are out there that are requiring it. So I have a feeling we're recommending to our kids to take the essay just in case, because it would stink to get to doing your applications and have a school that is looking for the essay and not have it done. So we're going to recommend to do it, but it looks like the New England schools, for the most part, have kind of moved away from requiring the essay. And then we're back to kind of the old scale that we all remember, which was that 1600 scale. I think we're 10 years into this, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around the 2400 scale, because I just didn't have that when I was growing up. So we're going back to 1600 again. So it'll be interesting to see how our kids do on it. You know, they took the PSAT. Our entire junior class took PSATs this year, and we saw the results on that. It's hard to compare them to the last PSATs because the tests are different. But it looked overall like when we talked about it, I think our kids did decent on it. So it's going to be interesting to do some comparisons on that as we move forward too. The critical reading portion of the SAT, we were a mean of 530, which was up a little bit from the previous class. It was the 6th highest that we had on record since 1995. So still, keep staying up there. I mean, we always want our kids to be able to do better, but we're still maintaining a pretty high standard when it comes to our SAT scores. We're above national and Massachusetts means on the critical reading portion as well. For the math, we were up about 20 points from the previous year's class. We were just slightly above the mass mean, and we were above the national mean on that as well. And then when I get to the writing test, this was the 10th class that took it. We'll have one more class that will finish with the writing test. So this year is the class of 2016. Mean score was up 6 points from the year before, and we were up on the mass and national means both with those. And one thing I should say is we do use a combination of our highest scores in each category when we report out our SAT scores for comparison with our kids over the course of time. I think the Massachusetts and national means are a combination of everything. but if you look at them together, if I were to just pull our stuff out and just have our every score combined, we're about in the exact same places, because we did look at that, but we do use the highest scores in each category. For comparison to the dark schools through the DESE, just to give you an idea, and you'll see it in your report, and I'll kind of move on to the slide, because I think the graph that I have is I think it makes it a little bit easier to see. We were the third highest of the 10 other like schools as far as the 2400 scale goes. We're the fourth highest critical reading, the fifth highest math, so right in the middle, and then the third highest on the writing. That being said, we also have the highest percentage of kids taking the SAT of all the dark schools. So more of our kids were sitting for the tests, so it stands to reason that probably our scores might be a little bit different than some of the other schools that are in there. So I thought that was important to note, and that just kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown of the schools. You can read from the bottom up. I should have had it top down. A little fuzzy on my math on that, but it went bottom up as to see where the critical reading and math scores combined go on that scale, so you can see where we are. We're the fourth down on the list there of the 10 schools.
Who was ME?
Manchester, Essex. Subject tests, I keep putting these on here because we do have some kids that are taking them. The numbers have decreased dramatically over the course of time. We were actually down, at 16%, which was down 26% the year before, so we were down about 10% of kids taking subject tests. It's hard for us to get mean data on those because you've got to have at least 5 test takers to do that. I think what I have up there is there's only 9 schools in the country now that actually require subject tests. It's decreased immensely over the course of time. So you have more SAT test optional schools that are out there. There are fewer schools that are looking at subject tests than they have in the past. So the number of kids that we have taken has just simply gone down. We had kids take exams, and you can see 2 different biology exams, English, Lit, Math, 1 and 2, Physics, Spanish for listening, and U.S. history. So we still did have kids taking a variety of exams. As I said, it's tough to get mean data. And every year it's different as to who's taking the tests. Sometimes we've had a couple of kids who have taken them the last couple of years because one way to qualify for, not even necessarily on the college front, but one way to qualify for the Colebrook Scholarship, which is one of the MCAS scholarships that's out there, is that you have to have certain SAT subject test scores that potentially qualify, or AP scores, or certain activities that you've had to have done. And some of our kids, because maybe they didn't have the APs, they didn't have the activities, they just sat for subject tests and tried to reach those scores. And some of those scores are a little challenging to get. So that, I think, those kids are in the mix of this as well. So it's not just kids going to college route. But for molecular biology, we were third. It was about a 30-point decrease from the previous year. Spanish was a little bit of an increase from the previous year. So you can see that we were still above the state and national averages on both of those tests. And then the other one that I could compare was U.S. history. That was a decrease from the previous year. We were below the state average by a point, tied with the national average. Again, and when you're looking at those tests, you're probably talking about somewhere between 5 to 10 kids that are taking those exams, so it's not a huge sample.
Why colleges do you know why colleges have kind of gone away from the subject tests?
Yeah,
I mean they're not that old.
They're not, right? No. They've been around for a while. I think it's just that there's a movement on the college front right now is really, I think, taking a look at what makes sense when it comes to college admissions and what tests are making sense. I think for some of the schools that are out there right now that have specific strengths or specific programs that they're looking at kids for, they want them taking. So a lot of the maths, math subject tests, maybe some of the science subject tests. Some of those colleges will push those towards certain programs that they're interested in. I think the ACTs is part of that too. Kids that take the ACT can use their ACT with writing score in lieu of taking subject tests, and part of that is because there's a science section on the ACT. So I think some schools have gone towards using that as opposed to using subject tests. Like a lot of schools will say ACT with writing in lieu of using subject tests. So that, there's been a general de-emphasis on testing. It's not everywhere, but there has been, and I think, the colleges are starting now to look a little bit more on the day-to-day work in the classroom, and they're looking at, how many AP exams you've had. We have some schools that moved away from subject tests that now are asking that you can, instead, if you want to be not necessarily test optional, but they give you test options. So instead of maybe submitting subject test scores, you can submit your SAT with 2 AP scores, or however like they've given you some different options. So they're still trying to find ways to look at what your curriculum is like and what your strengths are, but they aren't necessarily doing it through the subject tests. And so those are just they're just looking. There's other avenues there, I think, that they're looking for evaluation.
So outside of the schools that don't, there's only 9 in the whole country.
Yeah.
So if a student takes a subject test and they're applying to a school that doesn't have to do it, and they did it because they're trying to get maybe access to money, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Are they required to submit that test to the school?
They don't have to, no.
So it's not going to negatively impact them if they don't do well?
No.
Because that'd be a risk of,
Yeah.
the risk reward of trying to go for the scholarship, but impacting maybe your ability to get in.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's an optional, you don't have to submit unless one of the 9 have to.
Yeah, unless they require it. And we'll have some kids that'll take it and maybe did really well on something, and the college says they're not using it for admissions, some kids will send it in, open it, maybe somebody sees it and is like, that's pretty good. Generally now, if they say they're not, they're not. But yeah, you don't have to send that.
Okay.
So those are kind of all I think that's all SAT, before I move into ACTs, that's all of our SAT information, just to kind of give you like any other questions that you guys have on the SAT stuff? I know it was like kind of good for you. I know it's a lot of numbers, so thanks for bearing with us on this. So the ACTs, and we've really tried to promote our students to take the ACT in addition to the SAT, just as another option, and to have both scores by the end of junior year so that they can compare them and see what they've done better on, to try to position them in a place that most kids are taking tests twice, so to take the one that they did the strongest on the second time, to have that for admissions. That being said, we still hover usually between 25 to 30, 40% of our kids taking it, so it's not as many as we would like. But we're still going to promote it. I still think it's worth doing. We had about 32% took it last year. That was the 6th most that we've had take it. 44% was the highest we've ever had. That was the class of 2011. And one thing about last year, though, is we had a third of our kids taking it, and we actually had the highest score that we've ever had composite on the ACT. It was 24.6. Again, another reason why I think we're pushing kids to try to take the test, because I think some kids actually find that they do well on it. And that was up 1.6 points from the year before, and it was the highest score we've had. We had increases in all 4 of the subjects areas, so the English, the math, the reading, and the science. And we were above state and national averages on the composite, and which was nice, because Massachusetts students, Massachusetts always tends to have the lowest participation rate amongst the entire nation, they still score the highest. So it was Massachusetts and Connecticut, I think we're tied for number 1, so we're tied with Connecticut this year. But that's just a glimpse on what our ACT scores look like for last year. And same thing this year. We've promoted the kids this year, and we'll do it next year to try to take the ACT, because I just think, as we're looking at college admission stuff, you try to paint yourself in the best light possible. And if it happens that the ACT turns out to be a good test for you, great. And some of our kids do well on the way the questions are phrased and the way the material is on this exam, so I think it's worthwhile. So I'm going to pass over to Riley so she can start to talk about our AP exams.
Okay. All right, so you guys all, I'm sure, know this, but just as a refresher, AP courses are rigorous college-level courses that are offered at the high school level. We allow juniors and seniors to take AP courses, and every course culminates in a comprehensive exam at the end of the year. And if students, so the highest score you can get on the AP exams is a 5, and if students earn a 3 or higher, it's possible to get college credit for those classes. So we have 7 AP exams that are actually taught at Millis High School. The AP art class that was offered this past year, that was the first time it ran. And so then we have 6 other that have run for a few years now, and then it's also an option to take AP courses online. So the class of 2015 took 11 different AP exams, 60% of the senior class participated in the AP program by taking at least one exam, which was up 22% from the class of 2014. And that means that, you know, well over half of the class of 2015 was taking college level courses. 6 out of 7 of the exams, so every course with the exception of that brand new AP art course had at least a 74% of the students taking the test scored a 3 or better, which is great. And we're super impressed with the AP biology students. 95% of the AP biology students scored a 3 or better.
Riley, before you go,
Yeah.
do we know what, in the class of 2016, what percentage of the senior class are participating in the AP program now?
I haven't done that yet. It'll be, I think it probably is going to be fairly similar.
So how do you explain the jump from, 22 to 60 is almost 300% increase? I mean, it's not exactly, but
Yeah, it's a lot.
2 times
22% increase.
Yeah, 22%.
So it's-
Yeah, so 22% increase from the year before.
38 the year before.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
I read that wrong.
No, that's all right. It's a jump. And some of that too, we had AP Studio Art for the first time. I think that was part of it too.
Oh, I thought it was 20, okay.
No,
I
that's
went
all
from 22 to 60, sorry.
Yeah, but we still, we had a
It's
new
still,
class.
it's still
Yeah,
a good,
an
it's
increase.
still a good jump.
Yeah, we had a new class and you know, our AP numbers were pretty maxed for those kids in those classes last year.
It's very impressive.
Also, for the first time ever, Millis was named to the AP District Honor Roll. It's the 6th year that the College Board has given this recognition, and it's only given to 425 districts across the United States and Canada. So essentially what they're recognizing us for is having increasing numbers of students taking AP courses and exams, and also having those students, having an increasing percentage of students earning a 3 or higher on those exams. So overall, 147 exams were taken by 85 students last year. That's an increase from 127 exams taken the year before. And so while there was an increase in exams, the number of students earning a 3 or higher was about the same, but it did go down a little bit from 84 to 80%. And then 44% scored a 4 or better, and 14% scored a 5, which is the highest possible score. So the number of students who scored 4 and 5 did go down a bit with the increasing number of students taking the test. I'm not sure why. But the numbers overall scoring 3 or higher stayed about the same.
And one thing to keep in mind from that too is like in all the exams that we have there's also a portion of those are taken online through the virtual high school or the education cooperative. So those aren't teachers that are in our building, and honestly, like those kids have it's opened access to kids to be able to take other AP classes and get the enrichment and the content from those classes. But you know, sometimes I think being in that environment and then taking the test afterwards can sometimes be challenging because you don't have that face-to-face teacher that's pushing you. So in our overall data, we include that in there because that's what College Board does. And those kids, you know, all took the exams and asked for help around the building and things like that too. But it's important to kind of keep that in mind there. These aren't just, and we had a lot of kids last year. We will this year too. We have a lot of kids that are taking AP classes online too to kind of get out, you know, to expand the curriculum here a little bit as well. So it's great for the access, but sometimes I think it's a little bit challenging. Those scores haven't always been as high. You know, just to keep that in mind in our overall stats.
So you can see, just looking at the graph, that blue line is the lower blue line is the number of Millis High School students taking AP exams, and at least since 2007, possibly even before that, it looks like this year has been the highest number of Millis High School students taking AP exams, and they took a total of 147. The average or mean grades for the classes that are physically taught at Millis High School were a 3 or above so for all 7 classes. And then the mean grades were higher than the state and national means in 5 of the 7 exams taken that were a culmination of the classes physically taught at MHS. So that's with the exception of the AP art class and English language. So AP scholars, we had 20 of 55 seniors who took AP exams that were named AP scholars. And being named an AP Scholar means that you took three or more AP exams and you scored 3 or higher on all 3 of those exams. So we had, again, 20 students total, which there were 92 students in the class. So the fact that we had over 20% of those seniors took 3 or more AP exams and scored 3 or higher is awesome. And then there were students who also earned the AP Scholar with distinction status, which means that they scored 3 or higher on 5 or more AP exams, and an AP Scholar with honor status means that they scored 3 or higher on 4 or more AP exams, if that makes sense. The AP scores in comparison to those DART schools that Mark mentioned, the Millis students recorded the 3rd highest percentage of exams scoring 3 or above at 80%, and that's trailing just Georgetown and Manchester, Essex.
Those percentages, how many kids did they have? Do you know how many kids they have taking the exam?
96% is...
Right, I mean, that's...
Yeah, it's absurd, yeah. I'm with you, I know, it's a huge number. I didn't find that, I was looking for that info too. We had actually talked about that with Nancy, looking for some of those numbers too, and I didn't find the numbers on that, but yeah, it's a huge number.
And I wonder too, because we always have any student that takes, if you take the AP course, you have to take the AP exam, and at some schools it's optional whether or not you have to take that AP exam, so I wonder what the rules are at those schools, I'm not sure.
I remember in high school, I think English AP, and I think there were only 2 kids in our class who ended up taking
We
the
took the exam.
Right.
Yeah, in some schools, a lot of schools will do that, and we require all the kids to do it, and so you kind of see a broader range of scores.
So I had a question I wrote down. So if they're do the test scores, so if we're requiring them to take the AP test, do the tests impact their overall grade in the class?
No.
It's separate and distinct from the grade.
Yeah,
So
because those grades don't come out until July either, so like you don't see your AP scores until July.
So it's not going to impact the GPA, and does it have an impact on schools, right? Actually, it would have an impact on college acceptance because they're coming out after they've already been accepted.
Well, the kids that are taking them as juniors
Juniors.
will have them, in July, but they're not, again, except for some of those schools now that have come out and used APs as a potential, there's not a lot, but some schools have come out and said you could submit those to them in lieu of certain standardized testing.
So they're making
Some of those schools, yes.
requirement.
Yeah, most other schools, it's not a requirement to submit the scores. It's just not there. I mean, the one time that you would want to do it is if you've gotten accepted to college, and whatever school you're picking, and they say they'll take certain of your scores at 3 or higher, then you'll submit them to them, because that might end up, if you're going to get some credits for that, that might save you some money on your bill.
Sure.
The AP tests are expensive to take. They're $93 a piece this year. But if that $93 ends up saving you $1,200 on the other side, because it's a class you don't have to take, well, then it's a nice trade-off. And there still are a number of schools in the country that will take the AP exams for credit when you get to school.
I know the faculty is stretched very thin, but is there any way to support the kids? I'd like to be, the virtual schools, virtual classes, expanding the curriculum, but is there any way to support those kids? Or is it directing kids who may not be in the position to handle that kind of the online piece with these are APs, so this is not just a regular course. I don't know how you guys can handle that, but it seems like they may be the ones kind of blowing in the wind a little bit just because they don't have that face-to-face contact.
Yeah, I think
difficult courses.
it is. I think it's something we're trying to navigate now a little bit, because more kids have wanted to take the online AP classes. And I think in the last few years, we've noticed that number increase a little bit, and we're trying to figure out exactly how to get across to the kids what the actual rigor of these classes is and what you're in. We're doing scheduling now, and how many conversations have we probably had about that in the last 2 days? A lot. About just what the expectations are for you to take. It's challenging enough to take an AP class, and to be in a classroom with a physical teacher you can ask questions to. It's even more challenging to be online and be taking that class when you're just, when you're responding on forums and you're posting messages and talking to classmates. You really have to be someone who can use their outside resources. And I think we're trying to connect kids to some of those outside resources and some of those places where they can get some extra prep and help. I know a couple years ago we had some kids in like an AP World History class and I had reached out to a teacher in a school that I was at previously. He was kind of like a guru. It was European history, I think. He was kind of the guru on that, and he provided me with some materials to give the kids. Very self-motivated kids. So they took the materials and kind of really read through stuff and helped prep themselves more for the exam. But I think we have to do some of those things. I think it's great because the kids get the content of those classes, and generally they're doing pretty well in the AP classes online. So I mean, they're taking in the content, they're learning, they're experiencing things that they might not have had in just the regular classroom because they are in the AP classroom. But it's sometimes not translating out onto the tests. So there has been a trade-off. So we're trying to figure that out. I think as we go forward, I think that's something that we've talked about. And it is tough because you do have some teachers who are in the building that have some expertise in some of these subjects, but they're also have a full load of kids and they're trying to keep up with their kids for extra help and everything else. So they've been really generous in trying to give some of their time, but it's also not necessarily fair on them either. So we are trying to balance that out as best we can. That's a good question.
For Spanish immersion, our Spanish immersion students continue to do really well. The class of 2015 had 12 Spanish immersion students graduating. The overall GPA of the Spanish immersion students was a 3.697, which was higher than the class average of 3.157. 92% of the Spanish immersion students indicated four-year college compared to 86% of the entire class. 90% of the Spanish immersion students took the SAT, and they outscored the overall class average in every category. The overall mean SAT scores for the Spanish immersion class was 1756, which is a whole 168 points higher than the overall class mean of 1588. And all 12 Spanish immersion students that took the AP Spanish language exam scored 3 or above. We hope so, right? So just some general summary observations. Millis High School students do continue to move on to higher education in large numbers. The number of acceptances to competitive schools remains steady, even with the competition growing and growing. The survey, so we do give a survey to the graduating seniors just before graduation to ask them, what we did that was helpful for them, what we can improve in the future. And 87% of the class of 2015 said that they were admitted to one of their 3 top choice schools, which we're psyched as an increase from 74% of the previous year. And 56% said that financial aid package was a factor in choosing a college, so no surprise there. Millis compares well to other DART schools for both SAT and AP exams. Again, more than 3/4 of our AP exams scored a 3 or higher, which is the 3rd highest of the DART schools. Again, so current juniors just took the new PSAT in October. Some of them have taken the new SAT already because the first one was in March, and again there's another one coming up in May. So it'll be interesting to see how those scores compare. And Mark and I are, I'm used to calling him Mr. Taking when I'm talking to kids. Mark and I this week just sort of get a jump on it. I think it's helpful no matter what scores you're looking at. But we're going to do an item analysis of the PSAT scores that we got from the PSATs in October to see what are our students' strengths, what are they understanding, what are they getting from their classes, what some of the weaknesses are, and then the goal is to eventually sit down with the teachers and try and figure out how as a group we can continue to do well on the things that we're doing well on, and maybe start to improve some of the things that are not as strong. We were psyched to see that the class of 2015 survey data shows great satisfaction with the school counseling services. We're super proud of what the class of 2015 was able to do, and very impressed. And they definitely had a lot of successes. And while we're obviously happy to see that, we are always looking for ways to improve, of course. So one thing we were doing is that item analysis. We are increasing the guidance seminars that we're doing at each level. Freshmen last year, we started by going in 3 times a year, so we're hoping to see some improvement overall with you know, as that, as the younger classes rise now. The other things,
Yeah, the only other thing I think to mention was just that we had offered we offered the sophomores to take a PSAT, 10th grade PSAT. It's in essence was the same as the regular PSAT, but it was given in February rather than October. We had about 3/4 of the class take it, so, you know, again, knowing that like our kids, like I said, we've been pushing at ACT, but kids haven't necessarily been jumping onto it. We're still at 30–40%. And we've got 93% of our kids taking SAT. We've kind of felt like we're better serving our kids to help get them prepped for SATs. So we had the 10th graders do that, and then we'll have the, you know, and obviously they'll take that again as juniors next year, but they'll have 2 of those practice tests under their belt, which will hopefully be helpful to them. And then I think next year we'll offer the PSAT to sophomores as well, and allow them to take that exam. And now with the SAT, you know, you can get online and do all, they partner up with Khan Academy. I don't know if you guys have heard of Khan Academy, but they have an online portal that when the kids take their PSAT, they actually have access to their scores, the entire test, and then tailored test prep for them for free. So if they really spend some time and go online and dig into it, they can, you know, they can get some extra help and support getting prepared for the exam. And I know you guys were nice enough to help waive the fee for the SAT class that's running in the building too. We had, I think, 12 or 13 kids that signed up for it. It's not cheap, so I know that, but it's still, there's 12 or 13 kids that hopefully will benefit from that class as well as having some free online practice too. You know, again, we say the same thing every year, but we're very thankful for the support that you guys have given us. All the stuff that you've seen here is a tribute to the teachers and the students in the building. Like Taylor, we did some scheduling today, doing some more AP stuff. You're here, Taylor. You know? You're in the seat, you know. You know, it's the kids and the teachers and the faculty and Bob and Nancy that, you know, I mean, that's where, you know, we have some great leadership and we have some great people in the building that really look out for the kids and work hard with them. And I think all this stuff that you see here on, you know, all the numbers and stats and all that stuff is just a result of all that. So, and we thanks, as I say it every year, thanks for your continued support. So, and thanks to Erica Harkey, probably watching at home. She should be, not for all the help she does for our office. So. But she will be watching at home, so it'll be good. This hopefully will make her hold on to the end. So thank you guys very much. I don't know if you have any other questions for us.
Did you address all the questions we asked from last year?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
And if he shows up tomorrow night, having gone through this with a laundry list, you can.
Yeah.
As always, this is a good, all kidding aside, this is my favorite presentation. I think it really shows and demonstrates the hard work, like you said, that everyone puts into preparing our students for the future. And it's a nice, it dovetails into commencement or graduation when you see the kids walking and getting the scholarships and not, you know, where they're going to school. So it's a nice kind of a bookend to the start of the end of the school year. So thank you once again.
Very good.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you guys very much.
Move to the superintendent's report. Proposed FY17 tech fund.
I have several things. The tech budget I included in your packet, we do not approve this because the tech board approves it, but it is required and I think also useful for you to understand the tech budget. And basically, it's a 2.2% increase overall. The impact on Millis is that we will have about a 2% increase. Well, we will have a 2% increase in our tuitions for our students who are attending tech programs, except for one program that is going up more. I don't think we currently have a student in that program, but it is a reasonable budget. Tech and Accept both provide very good services for our out-of-district placements that are higher quality and at a lower cost than private schools.
Mr. Chair. Nancy, do we know what the impact on Millis would be? Or, I know it's in the future, but knowing what we've done in the past, do you have an idea how much this 2% would cost us?
No. No.
Loaded question, I apologize.
No, I can get that for you by the next meeting, though. I do have the, where everybody attends. I have that list, but I didn't calculate.
And I know that could
what-
change next year, but at least if it impacted us right now, what would that cost? Because
Right.
that, depending on where we are, that could have a substantial impact.
It could. There is usually a 1 to 2% increase in tuitions, and they often budget for that. But the other thing is tech is moving toward reducing our assessment as a district. There's a membership fee.
Yes.
So concurrent with our rise in they're shifting rather than have a large membership fee, and they're bringing their tuitions up a little bit.
So pay for service more
And
than just to beg to be able to.
so it should be not a huge impact
Okay.
for Millis, but I'll certainly figure that out and bring it next meeting.
If possible.
And then we've had several other things that I wanted to update the committee on, just some good things happening. The professional development is in your packet in the red folders, the handout of what will be happening at the middle school and high school tomorrow will be, again, and still a focus on personalizing learning, which is what we've been working on and going deeper into. And teachers will be working on ways to personalize their lessons. Last week, during advisory periods at the high school, we addressed a theme of a world without hate, which comes from a little video that the Anti-Defamation League provides for free. So students in our advisories, and every single high school student is in an advisory, and they stick with that advisory group and that advisor for their 4 years of high school. So during that time, we had a discussion around imagining a world without hate, respect for others, etc. And it was very productive from what people tell me. I wanted to mention this because of some of the current things that have happened, not just in Millis, but in other communities. And the middle school also addresses the theme of a world without hate and respect for others through a lot of their curriculum linkages in 7th and 8th grade and in their team huddles. So we also, as you know, have a health curriculum in which we students and teachers talk about and study what goes into healthy relationships and respect for others, the peer leaders, and the anti-bullying initiatives that are throughout the elementary, middle, and high school. Bernadette mentioned the Lights, Camera, Action Conference we will host tomorrow, which brings schools from all over New England. And what's amazing about this conference is the students run the conference and have some very high-profile, big-name people in the video and media world that come for panel discussions, etc. And it's fabulous. We've also, I've included in your packet some handouts from the Caron Institute, and Barbara Thistle, the Millis Director of Public Health, reached out to us because she had heard of some funding through the CHNA, which is the Community Health Network. And that CHNA is a group of there are different regions throughout the state, and there's some grant funding for some prevention services which are very timely for us. So we're partnering with the Caron Institute to offer immediately 2 things. One is a Next Steps program for high school seniors as they transition to college to help them prepare for the social, emotional, and life changes that they will face in college. And so we're very excited that we're able to offer this. The Next Steps is for seniors. We are also going to be providing something called the Brain Drain, which is a drug prevention program for middle schoolers, teaching them mostly about how substances affect their brains. And then two parent evenings. And we have some dates, we just have to commit. The people from Karen are checking their schedules, but we'll be able to do a middle high school evening for parents in a program called PrEP, which is Prevention Resources and Education for Parents, around ways to talk to your kids about what's going on, drugs, alcohol, other substances, and some ideas on ways to build resiliency for students. And then a program that's specially developed for elementary parents, even though parents might feel that it's rather a young age to be thinking or worrying about that. The Karen Institute provides a very good parent program for elementary parents as well. So we're grateful to Barbara Thistle for bringing it to our attention, and we hopped right on it and organized it because the dates are going fast and they have limited resources, so the Karen Institute is excited to be working with us as well. And then lastly, I have to, well, one thing, I did see the play last weekend, The Once Upon a Mattress, and it's marvelous, so I think everybody who has a chance should try to see it Friday or Saturday night this upcoming week. And then finally, an update on some of the goings-on at Clyde Brown addressing the facilities. We've had the roofers come out 3 times, and except for one leak that is still very persistent in the cafeteria, the other leaks are diminished or gone. We are watching them to make sure that there's, there might be a small evidence of a leak that we're keeping tabs on. I have to say Mr. Phelps has done a fabulous job developing protocols for tracking the leaks, the tiles that might need replacing, and we're hopeful that the vast majority of the leaking has been addressed. We do know that the cafeteria leak, the roofer was there and it's on the flat roof, but they just ran out of time and the material to patch the large area that is in the cafeteria. It's a special material for the Sonafel. It's a plastic roof, basically, and you can't just patch it with any material. So they will be back out as soon as the snow is gone. We do find that snow and melting snow is often when we get the greatest leaks there. It has something to do with when there's cold, the material contracts and the crack opens up a little bit more, and then we have a larger leak. So the other thing that Mr. Phelps and I and Mr. McDuff have met on is developing, we have a tracking system for all 32 of the Department of Public Health recommendations that Mike Feeney presented to us at our last meeting. And in a Google Docs, we've developed the action steps to remediate or address the recommendations, the person responsible, a time frame, and what we're currently working on is also perhaps the resources that will be needed to do so. I don't yet have an estimate of the people hours that will be necessary to do it all, but what I might be bringing to the committee as a proposal at our next meeting based on those estimates of how we can get the work done in a very timely fashion. But the system is in place to track all of those 32 recommendations. Mr. Phelps has also put into place system to track all, which air vents have been, the univents, like the one behind me, have been cleaned, vacuumed, filters changed, etc., and a schedule for that, so that is in the document. And also a good system for just routine maintenance that's being sent to his office that needs to be done, so that there are now systems in place there for the routine maintenance, the specialized maintenance, to address not just air quality, but general cleanliness. And as some of the recommendations for air quality had to do with clutter, some clutter. So we're moving forward on that and making good progress.
Just another thing I know, because it's been brought up at our last couple of meetings, we are working on getting bids and estimates for degrees of work for the roof. And Nancy got one quote today, a full roof repair, which is really just a quick quote, but it was anywhere from 1.3 to 1.6 million for a full roof repair.
Replacement.
Replacement, right.
1.3 to 1.6.
Yeah, that's one quote. It's not a
Yep.
hard and fast estimate. It's just
Full replacement.
a quote. But what they are working on as well is talking with roofers who can see if there's intermediate step, something less than a full replacement, based on the condition of the roof. And I don't know whether it's one of those things where you start and you end up, the whole thing's got to go, or if there are things that, you know, maybe can be done to sections. But, so that work is still ongoing. Other things, shifting to budget and warrant articles. Last week, the selectmen voted to reduce the town warrant from about 72 to 42 articles. All of the articles that we submitted that were not must-fund articles are 3 annual articles, and the 2 articles related to the emergency work have been removed. And the selectmen also, just as information, the selectmen did add an override, an operational override for roads to the ballot and the warrant for this May. It's a $300,000 operational override to begin the process of starting to work on roads. So residents and taxpayers will have to evaluate whether they want to contribute to that right now. In advance of the elections on May 2nd, there's a contested race for selectmen, 3 candidates. And so we're going to group the Millis Public Forum is sponsoring a candidates night forum on Tuesday, April 19th at the community room in the library. I believe it's from 7 to 9. Yeah. So anybody interested should check that out. I do believe I saw that it was going to be televised.
Is the school committee race contested?
School committee race is not contested.
Okay. I still think we should make a candidate speech, just to be consistent.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah, not tonight. I want Jeff to be here.
Then that's it. Subcommittee reports. Elementary school building committee.
We have a full committee meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., 9 to 11. We have a lot to talk about. At last Monday's Board of Selectmen meeting, there was, in addition to the warrant for the town meeting, to transfer, not permanent, but in a kind of step-by-step way, transfer ownership, or transfer control, I should say, control of a portion of parcel 18 and parcel 20, which are the parcels parcel 20 is effectively the main part of the town park, and parcel 18 is mostly grassy knoll over by the playground area. The four options, the two new options that are on the MSBA preferred design program that was already submitted, they encroach upon 18 and 20. And in order for the MSBA to accept our application, we need to show control goes to the schools. So the Board of Selectmen voted to put the warrant on with contingencies that one, if the MSBA project does not go through, they stay, the control stays with the town. And then two, the Board of Selectmen have the final right to say no. So it's not a permanent switching of control. There's a couple steps that have to go through, but the first step would be town meeting. And so there is a forum next Wednesday to further kind of refine the four options that were presented, to get together more community input and to have a conversation about this, the vote around the town land piece. Is that about right?
Yep.
Okay.
Correspondence?
Mr. Chair, in your packets, there were some wonderful articles in the Millis Medway News. One on the front page about the prom, the semi-formal, that our special needs sub-separate program had a joint prom with another program, which was really wonderful. We also had Special Olympics past week, which was a 5-town collaborative, exciting day for special needs students to compete and just have a wonderful time. And surprise visit by Gronk was the highlight of the day, where our students, we have good video of them chasing Gronk around and he was fabulous. He stayed and played with the kids all morning long. Also, another article on, we have some great senior projects. Our students are all required to do a senior project. We encourage that to be a give back to the community in some way. So Brenda Nelson has done her senior project to try to learn about and raise funds for a vest for the local canine police dog, and she's working with the Holliston Police Department on that. We also have a senior who is doing 5K and those proceeds will be going to Lyme disease research, and that's Sophie Erico. And I'm just always so impressed with their presentations that these kids do. So you have an article on the special needs, the Special Olympics, and then also a great article on the girls basketball, very close to championship, but we're very proud of the effort to come in and do so well during the tournament. And then an article on Mike Carter taking over as our new varsity baseball coach. So there were quite a few little articles in the Millis Medway News. And that's it.
Some committee announcements. Steve?
I'm all set.
All set, John?
No, thank you.
Nope.
All right. We don't have any old or new business. We will adjourn to executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining for those teachers' contract negotiation. I will entertain a motion. We won't be coming back tonight. Our next meeting is April 26th.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Catalano.
I make a motion to move to executive session to discuss contract negotiations with the MTA, not to come back into open session.
Second.
Second, roll call vote. Steve?
Yeah, aye.
Aye. John?
All right.
Denise?
Aye.
All right. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.